Welcome to Rick Rack Ruby. I'm Laura Cluvo. Today we will be using vintage fabrics and trims to create an angel ornament for the tree. She's fun and easy, so let's get started. I purchased this lovely lot of vintage fabrics from my favorite Facebook vintage group. They seem to have a theme of purples, although I got another lot in pink and another lot in blue. I'm pretty sure these are the purples. I intend to make Christmas ornaments, of course, 'tis the season. And I have some ideas, but I'm not really sure about everything. Now, full disclosure, this piece at the end was mine. I also bought a couple of lots of lace, and I just pulled out a few pieces that really inspire me, and I pressed them so they're ready to go. Isn't that sweet? I wanted to show you everything before I got started. And I think I will begin this one. This is actually pieced. The strips are pieced together. So there's this sort of rose colored, and then there's this floral. And I'm thinking of doing some stuffed angels from this. It kind of bothers me that this print runs this way and I want to cut the angels this way, but I think it'll work out. All right, so let's get started. This piece is about 14 inches square, and I'm going to do stuffed angels. I think I've made a window template. This is 5 inches tall and 2.5 wide, and I drew a 2.5 inch circle here at the bottom, folded in half, cut it out, and it is 1.5 inches at the top. So there's my pattern. And then I created a window template just to see. I don't like for the seam to be right in the dead center like that, but I think it's inevitable. Anyway, I'm going to try to get 4 at least out of this, and I'm going to try to cut the bottom half of this shape from the brightest patterned fabric. So here, maybe I'll do this one this way. We'll see. I'll just cut out the fronts and see how far I get. I found that this fabric was a little flimsy, so what I did was I cut a little stabilizer, a fusible interfacing from this pattern, and I ironed it onto the back and then cut it out. And now I feel like I have something that's going to hold up to stitching and stuffing. I also don't like the seam in the center, so I'm going to try to mitigate that with a little bit of lace. I think maybe something like this will work. So I'm going to cut the lace right here, and then I'm going to stitch around this. Here is the front of my angel, and I'm going to use this for the back. This fabric is a little bit, thicker and more sturdy. And that's going to help give me something to push against when I'm stuffing. So I will pin this and cut out around the back, around here. And then I'm going to stitch along this edge, leaving the top open, right sides together. Here we go. I've stitched all the way around with a little 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I back stitched quite heavily at the start and the end, and I'm going to use my pinking shears to cut this out. Here we go. And now I'll turn it right side out. I actually do this pretty carefully because I have that lace inside, and so I just want to make sure that the lace stays against the front. And then this side is thick. It's like a denim or a canvas almost. And so I'm going to work that through very carefully. Here is how it looks right now, but I'm going to stuff it with Polyfill Ultra Plush stuffing. I'll just stuff it all the way to the top, then I'll tuck in the edges and gather that up. I stuffed my angel body, and now I'm going to gather up the top edge. I have a double strand of Coats & Clark button and craft thread, but you can use quilting thread. And I'm going to secure the knot in the thick part of the seam allowance. And then I'm just going to gather it all around the top edge. There we go. Okay, just in and out, in and out. I like to use a thimble. Then I'm back to where I started. So now as I'm drawing this up, I'll be tucking in the seam allowance. Then I'll go around one more time and I'll knot off the thread. So this is gathered up, and this next part is really fun. I have a vintage hat and it's covered with flowers, and it still has a price tag. It was $8.50. I don't remember exactly where I got it, but I think it was probably an antique mall. Anyway, there's a certain size of flower that I'm looking for that's going to be just the right scale for a collar here. Let's see, I think this one would work. This is the size that I like, but I don't need these little brown stamen things. I don't know, what's the plural of stamen? I forget. But anyway, I'm going to pull those out. And now I have a simple little flower, and I'm going to glue that right here so that the petals form her collar. And then I also have, this is a 1-inch ball knob for the head. And I've already created a face. And of course, you can find the instructions for the Rick Rack Ruby face in my Focus on Faces video. So I will hot glue the collar and then the head, the face. I'm making sure to secure all the petals. There's 2 layers of petals in this flower, and so this one wasn't caught by the first glue. So I'm just going to make sure this is very securely glued down. That looks good. And then her head will be glued right to the top of the flower. That looks good. I'm going to hold that for a second until the glue hardens a little bit. Okay, now for the hair. I have a 4x6-inch index card, and I'm folding it in half, matching up the short sides like this. Then I have 2 different kinds of yarn. This one is a kind of a fine loopy mohair, and this is more of a fuzzy mohair. So I'm going to use them together as one, and I'm going to wrap the card like this way. So now it becomes the long way. And I'm going to wrap it about 20 times, just enough to go across the card and then back again. I have my finger back here to be sure that I don't pull this too tight and cause the card to bend. That looks about right. And now on my sewing machine, I'm going to stitch through the center, right through the card, through all the layers of yarn, back and forth 3 times. So 1, 2, 3. Here I've sewn through the yarn in the folded index card, and I'm just kind of folding it back and forth over the center to make it easier to tear out and remove the card. So there's 1/2 of the card. There's the other half. That came out nice, very cleanly, and there aren't any little pieces of card left in here. So I'm going to call this the wig, and we're going to glue the hair, the wig, to her head. So I'll start by squeezing out a line of hot glue like this around her head from, you know, one ear to the other, kind of like where a headband would go. Here's the glue. I think you can see that. And then I'm going to place the seam of the yarn of the wig right directly on the glue. And then I'll squeeze out some glue along the back, right here, the back of the head, or the back of the neck right there. And then we're going to pull the ends of the wig into that second squeeze of glue there, like that. And then we'll press the ends in from the left and the right. If they don't match perfectly, you can pull them to stretch. Now let's just make sure that I can see her face and her features. That looks pretty, right? So I'm going to tie off her hairstyle into a top knot. I'm working with a doubled strand of button and craft thread, but you could also use quilting thread. I'm going to wrap around her head like this 2 times and tie it off, pulling that nice and tight. Good. I have a square knot. And then, because I want to be sure that the that this thread loop doesn't just pull right off of her hairstyle, I'm actually also going to sew through. So that's why I make sure I have a nice long piece of doubled thread. So I'm sewing through the hair. That'll hold it down. And then I'm going to tie it again. I want this tight so that it, you know, forms that little shape right there. And I'll cut the ends. That looks good. I'm just going to pull some of this out on this side. It's a little tight on one side. That's better. Now for our hanging loop, I'm just going to stitch through below the tied off thread there. To create a hanging loop. I don't need it this long, but I just figured I'd use this whole piece because once I cut it, it wouldn't be long enough to do anything else anyway. So I'm doing an overhand knot here in the top and trim those streamers. Great. And now for her halo, I have 20 gauge gold wire. I'm going to cut off about 6 inches. Make an X like this and then twist the ends together like that. Open up the circle and then fold it like this. I think you can see that. Then I'll apply some glue to the wire ends here and press that right into the center of the top knot. Now you can make it longer so that actually the halo is above the hairstyle, but I like when the halo is sort of integrated into the hairstyle, like that. And then we'll add a little accent right here. I like to use these, let me find the right piece. Okay. This is something that I pulled off that hat, and it just is, I think, just the right size to glue right there. So I will apply some glue here to the bottom back center, like that, and just press that right into her hair. Cute. Now I know you're not going to have the exact same thing, but I know you can find something similar. Now under her collar here, I'm going to tie a bow from the same 1/16 inch ribbon, just like you're tying a shoelace. Here's my bow, just 2 loops and some streamers, and I like for the loops to sort of dangle down, but if you want the loops to go out, that's okay too. I'm just gonna hold them like that and apply some glue right here at the center. I'm lifting up the petals of this collar, and I'm gonna hold that for a second. That looks good. And then I'll trim the streamers. For the wings, I've chosen this fabric. It was from my lot of vintage fabrics. And I traced a 4 3/4 inch circle onto to the top of some fusible interfacing, and then I fused it onto the fabric and then cut it out. So this is the interfacing fused to the back, and here's the fabric. I've decided I actually want this to be the front, even though this side's a little more interesting, but I think once you put this on, it just kind of looks like you have a pinkish side and a greenish side. And this is a little bit more consistent. And this is the grain of the fabric. I also could have done it this way, but then the rose looks like it's upside down. So anyway, I've decided that this is going to be the front of the wings. And for me, it's best if I just put an F on the interfacing side of that. So I'll fold this right sides together like this. And then I'm just going to sew a seam all the way along this curved edge. Don't leave any opening. And you can see I've sewn this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and now I'm going to trim the seam allowance with my pinking shears. Now we need to create an opening for turning, and remember the opening is going to go on the front. So I'll fold this in half just to mark the center here, and then create a little X or a plus sign here, like this and like this. And I'm going to cut along that plus sign only through the front layer of the wing. So this is the back, this is the front, only the front gets cut. And then I'm going to turn the wing piece through that little opening. Don't make this hard on yourself. If your opening is too small, just make it a little bit bigger. You can't make it too big because it should be able to be hidden when you glue the head onto the wings or the wings onto the head. But you do want it to be easy to turn. That looks good. And now I'm going to, I'll poke these corners out a little bit better, and then I'm going to press this flat. Now I want to embellish the front of this semicircle with some lace. I tried just doing stitches and that didn't work out very well. And then I tried some lace, but it was too heavy. And now I'm going to try this one. I actually, let's see if I can find it. So it started like this, and since I wanted to sort of curve it, I thought it would be better if I just cut off this little header. So I removed the header, and now I have a little bit more flexibility with the placement of the lace. But first, because I want to make sure that these two layers stay together, I'm just going to top stitch just a line along here, nothing fancy, just to sort of hold these layers together. Ideally, this stitched line can serve as sort of a placement guide for the lace. First, I want to put some white glue, some of this Aleene's original tacky glue in the gold bottle on the back of the lace. I know. Glue is tricky because I live in Arizona, and so it just, every bottle of glue just dries out so quickly. And so I'm more comfortable with my glue gun. But the glue gun, this is so delicate, and that's just going to make big chunks of glue, you know. So I think this is a better method. And I did spread the glue onto one side of the lace, and the rest of the glue is on the ends of my fingers. That's perfect. Okay, I love that. This last little motif wound up kind of right at the edge there. So that's good. Now I'm going to let that dry for a minute while I go wash my hands. Okay, I'm just going to squeeze out some hot glue right here. And then press that onto the back of her head. Kind of like that. That looks good. Anyway, this is definitely my favorite wing. I'll show you the other ones that I made. It's not that there was anything wrong with any of these, but I just thought I could do better. So this is my first one, and I felt like that lace is just a little too strong, and I also felt like I could do better than just one little flower there, because I had a whole hat full of flowers, right? Then, since I wanted to go more subtle, I just did a stitch on this one, and it, I don't know, just wasn't enough, wasn't fun enough. So then I tried this lace, and it was too white, didn't really suit the feeling of the project. It didn't look very vintagey to me. And so then finally, I thought I'd try this one, and this is definitely my favorite. Thank you for watching my tutorial. If you're enjoying my videos, please like, share, and subscribe.